I was 34 and wanted peace. 16 days ago, I thought a cabin in the woods would help my creativity. It was peaceful at first. The trees were tall and the silence felt comforting. But as the days went on, things changed. The first night was fine. I settled in, hoping for inspiration. But at some point, I woke up to a strange smell. Smoke, heavy in the air. I jumped from the bed, worry flooding me. I rushed into the living room, fearing I'd left the fireplace on. I saw some ashes, but nothing burning. My heart raced. Maybe I was imagining things. I told myself to breathe and tried to sleep. The second night was quiet at first. I sat with my sketchbook, but there were scratching sounds. I tried to ignore them, thinking it was just nature. I went to bed with some doubts, but pushed them aside. Around midnight, the scratching came again. It felt closer. I held my breath, too scared to move. I felt frozen. Days passed. The scratching was constant, like someone pulling at the wood. Each night, I would find scorch marks on the walls. Twisted shapes burned into the cabin. They looked like letters, but I couldn't read them. Each time I found a mark, fear gripped me. I started to feel watched. Sometimes I heard breathing, soft and eerie, making the hairs on my neck stand up. I thought about leaving, but I had no service. I was stuck. The whispers started soon after the marks. They were faint, like voices carried by the wind. I dismissed them until they grew louder, as if they were getting bolder each night. I felt like I was going crazy. On the last night, something shifted. The cabin felt different, heavy. I tried to keep the lights off, knowing I didn't want to see what lurked in the shadows. That's when I heard a loud crash. Fear seized my chest. The noise echoed into silence. I waited, paralyzed, heart hammering in my ears. Was something there? Would it come for me? Then I heard the whispers again. They called my name. Jamie! I turned, terror coursing through me. I couldn't see anything, just darkness. I barely moved, frozen with dread. Who's there? I asked, my voice trembling. No answer came back, only those whispers circling inside my head. I stepped back, my heart racing. I wanted to run, yet my feet felt glued to the floor. I stared into the dark corner, expecting something to emerge, and then, right before me, I saw it. A figure, barely visible and shadowy. My throat felt tight, and I couldn't breathe. It didn't move. It just stood there. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. I turned to flee, tripping over a staircase, despair flooding me. I was running from something I couldn't see. Just as I reached the door, I felt a cold breath on my neck. There was no escape. The door slammed shut behind me, locking me in. All I could hear was my name echoing in the dark, and the cabin felt alive, waiting for my next move. There was nowhere left to hide. I backed away from the door, panic clawing at my throat. The shadows seemed to creep closer, wrapping around me. I had no idea what that figure was, but I could still see its outline, blurred and threatening. I glanced over at the window, hoping for a way out, but it was sealed shut. The air felt thick, almost suffocating, and the scratching noises were back, louder this time, as if something was trying to burrow through the walls. I took a deep breath and forced myself to think. I had to find something, anything, that might help me. I turned to the kitchen, hoping the dark would hide my trembling. I rummaged through the drawers, hands shaking, searching for a knife or anything I could use for defense. All I found were some rusted utensils, remnants of meals long past. Then I remembered the flashlight in my backpack. It was my only source of light. I sprinted back to the living room, nearly tripping again as I scrambled for it. My fingers fumbled as I turned it on, the beam cutting through the darkness like a lifeline. I aimed the light at the corners, expecting to see the figure still standing there, but it was gone. Relief and fear collided inside me. I knew it was still there, watching, waiting. I directed the light toward the scorch marks that marred the walls. They twisted and turned in unnatural patterns. I focused on the strange letters again. Maybe if I could make sense of them, I would understand what was happening. My heart raced. Maybe the shadows wanted me to decipher their message. Suddenly the whispers returned, more insistent. "Jamie, you need to remember." The voice was barely a whisper, yet it echoed in my mind. I shook my head, trying to dispel the sensation of dread tightening around me. Remember what? I had started to think I was losing my grip on reality. Then my eyes fell upon a small bookshelf in the hallway. I hadn't noticed it before. The layers of dust on the surface indicated it had been untouched for years. I hurried over, my flashlight beam revealing old, tattered books. I scanned the titles, heart pounding in anticipation. One stood out, The Cabin and Its Secrets. I felt a pull toward it, as if something inside was beckoning me to open it. As I yanked it off the shelf, I heard a low growl, almost like a warning. I froze. The shadows flickered around me, and I felt a chill crawl up my spine. "No, no," I murmured, the urge to flee rising in my chest again. Yet I couldn't back down now. I flipped the book open, pages crumbling beneath my fingers. There, scrawled in the margins, were notes in the same twisted letters burned into my walls. My heart raced as I tried to decipher the words, knowing that each answer could unlock a piece of this mystery, or plunge me deeper into danger. That's when everything went dark. The flashlight died. I stood in pitch darkness, the silence pressing against my ears. My heart pounded loudly, drowning out the shadows that grew restless around me. I cursed under my breath, fumbling to find the switch on my flashlight. Panic threatened to swallow me whole as I banged it against my palm, willing it to come back to life. Nothing. The darkness felt solid, nearly suffocating. Then a faint glow caught my attention. I turned instinctively toward it, an ethereal shimmer lingering just out of reach. My instincts screamed at me to run, yet curiosity clawed at me. I moved cautiously, straining my eyes for any sign of what lay ahead. As I took cautious steps forward, I noticed the faint whispers again, weaving in and out of the still air. They coalesced into a single phrase, more pronounced now: "Find the answer." It sent a shiver down my spine, connecting somehow with the mysterious scrawlings in the book I'd just opened. Suddenly the glow intensified, revealing a dim outline of the figure I had seen before. It hovered near the wall, its form shifting with an unsettling rhythm. I felt a rush of icy dread wash over me. This was no ordinary specter. I dared to take a step closer, but my foot slipped on something slick beneath me. I stumbled, but caught myself against the wall, breathing heavily. Then I noticed the floor, the dark shapes coiling along the wooden planks. It was as if shadows were stretching toward me deliberately. I swallowed hard, the urgency to escape clawing at my throat again. I pivoted to make a run for the door, but a low growl erupted from the figure's throat, stopping me in my tracks. "Don't go," it seemed to whisper. The figure, though still unintelligible, radiated an aura of sorrow and warning. Curiosity burned at my core. Why was it so intent on keeping me here? What did it want me to remember? I took a deep breath, stepping back, trying to reclaim my courage. I had come this far. I had to learn the truth. I reached for the book, still clutched in my hand, hoping to rediscover the words I had lost in the dark. I flipped through the fragile pages, quickly scanning for anything familiar. What I found made my stomach drop. A passage mentioned the fire that reveals. It recounted stories of families torn apart by insatiable flames, shadows of their past rising from the ashes. I felt a chill wash over me. Was the fire connected to me? I glanced back at the figure, feeling its energy pull me in closer. But all at once, the darkness shifted again. Sharp claws scrabbled against the walls, echoing the scratching noise I had heard before. Panic surged through me as I realized I wasn't alone in this dark cabin anymore. Then, from the opposing wall, a new shadow emerged, a massive hulking shape that lurked just behind the figure, its features unseen but definitely threatening. It stepped forward, and I finally understood. Someone was in the house. I froze, heart racing, as the massive shadow loomed closer. The figure before me flickered, caught between its sorrowful presence and the weight of the new threat. I could see its outline more clearly now, but I wasn't sure if it was trying to protect me or warn me. The growling intensified, vibrating through the air. I took a small step back, inching toward where I thought the door might be. But then I remembered the passage in the book. The fire that reveals. What did it mean? Was this creature part of the fire? Was it a protector or a predator? The other shadow crept forward again, muscles rippling beneath its dark form. I squinted, trying to make out its features, but it remained just out of reach of the dim glow. The whispers from before twisted around me, urging me to find the answer, and pulled at the edges of my mind. Suddenly, the figure in front of me raised an arm, blocking my view of the shadow. "It's not what you think," it rasped, voice soft, yet filled with an urgency that startled me. "You must learn. You must remember." Before I could process its words, the darkness erupted. The growling morphed into a snarl, and the hulk darted forward, lunging straight at us. I screamed, instinctively reaching out to the glowing outline next to me. Everything felt like a blur. The figure moved without hesitation, gliding sideways, its presence surged like a shield. I stumbled back as the hulking shadow collided with the wall, inches from where I stood. I caught a flicker of its eyes, reflecting nothing but malice. "Go!" the figure yelled. I didn't need to be told twice. I wheeled around and sprinted toward the door, adrenaline pumping through my veins. I could hear heavy footsteps pounding in my wake, each thud growing ever closer. The door. I could almost touch it. I lunged, but my hands grasped only air as it swung shut. I turned in panic. The figure was still there, standing between me and the hulking shadow. "You need to face it," it shouted. No time for doubt, no time for questions. Taking a deep breath, I squared my shoulders. I wasn't just going to stand by, not anymore. "What do I have to do?" I yelled over the chaos. "Find the fire," it urged. "Only then can you escape." And just like that, everything clicked. The fire was the answer, the key to my freedom. I needed to uncover its truth. Then suddenly, I felt an icy grip on my shoulder. I whipped around, heart in my throat. There it was, the hulking shadow, now blocking any chance of retreat. My heart raced as it leaned closer, a low rumble escaping its throat. My thoughts spiraled. I had to think fast. I needed to find the fire. But just as I was about to formulate a plan, the room plunged into darkness, suffocating and absolute. Then I heard the faint, almost melodic crackling sound of flames igniting somewhere in the cabin. What was that? With fear coursing through me, I knew I had to get to the source. But was it salvation or doom that awaited me? I stumbled in the dark, tripping over a misplaced chair. The crackling grew louder, coaxing me toward the unknown. My heart raced as I felt the icy presence still looming behind me. I cursed under my breath and pushed myself forward. The whispers intensified, almost drowning out the sound of the flames. "Find it," they urged, echoing in my mind. I squinted into the blackness, searching for a hint of light. My fingers brushed against something cool and metallic, an old fireplace poking out from the corner. Was this the source? My gut told me I had to investigate. The shadows danced on the walls, twisting into grotesque shapes as I moved toward the fireplace. I leaned in close, instinctively reaching out, hoping to find warmth amid the cold fear that enveloped me. Just then, the growl erupted again, closer this time. My fingers brushed against a matchbox tucked behind the fireplace. I pulled it out, and its wooden surface felt rough against my palm. I hesitated, recalling the figure's warning about the fire. What if lighting it only made things worse? The crackling intensified, pulling at my decision. I clicked open the box and fumbled with a match. As I struck it, a small flame flickered to life, illuminating my surroundings just enough to reveal the enormity of the shadow behind me. Panic swelled inside me. "Light it!" the figure urged again. I couldn't stop now. I brought the flame closer to a stack of old newspapers lining the fireplace. My fingers were shaking. I dropped the match onto the paper. The instant it caught fire, a rush of heat washed over me. The flames erupted, casting a warm glow that swallowed the shadows. The growling abruptly stopped, replaced by a low hiss like air escaping from a punctured tire. I could see details now. The hulking shadow that had haunted me was nothing more than a twisted representation of my fears, revealed by the fire's glow. It writhed, trying to slip away from the light, and in that moment I realized it couldn't approach me as long as the flames burned bright. The figure beside me shimmered, its outline clearer. "You did it," it murmured, relief flooding its voice. "Now, you must confront what you see." But as I stared into the flickering dance of flames, a chill ran down my spine. I wasn't just facing a fear. I was staring into the depths of something I didn't understand. Tendrils of shadow reached toward the light, trying to pull it back into the darkness. Suddenly, something shifted in the room, and the flames sputtered. The shadows around us flickered and expanded, almost as if they were alive. The whispers twisted again, more frantic this time. "You must choose, hold the fire or let it go." My pulse quickened. What did that mean? Then I caught sight of something shimmering in the fire. It was an object, almost translucent, glowing faintly amidst the blaze. That's when I saw it. It looked like a key. My breath caught in my throat. What did it unlock? And more importantly, were the shadows ready to fight back? The key shimmered brighter as the flames danced around it. I felt drawn to it, but a part of me hesitated. What if reaching for it meant letting go of the fire? Those shadows still writhed at the edges, dragging themselves further into the flickering light. I seized my breath and made my choice. I had to know what the key would unlock. Crouching down, I leaned toward the fire, my heart hammering against my ribs. I stretched out my hand. The moment my fingers brushed against the metal, a tremor ran through me. It burned like ice, and I yelled, pulling back. "Trust it," the figure beside me urged, more urgent this time. I glanced at it, uncertain. Trust? This had brought me nothing but fear, but I was running out of time. The flames continued to sputter, their light dimming, while the shadows began to inch closer. I gritted my teeth and lunged forward again. This time, I wrapped my fingers around the key and yanked it free, feeling a jolt surge up my arm. The shadows recoiled momentarily, shrieking in pain as I held the key aloft like a weapon against them. But the sensation passed quickly. The shadows regrouped, madder than ever, their whispers turning into a cacophony. "You must release the light," they hissed. "You can't escape." I could barely think, the key pulsing in my hand. I had no idea why it felt so important, yet something inside insisted I couldn't let it go. I turned from the fire to face the darkness. "What do you want from me?" I shouted, my voice trembling. The darkness didn't answer. Instead, a chilling silence fell over the room. The key began to hum, the sound vibrating through me, and I felt a sudden clarity wash over my panic. I had to confront whatever this was. I needed to understand. With renewed determination, I stepped into the shadowy depths beyond the light. The key felt hot, guiding me forward. I could see now. The shadows were forming shapes, faces twisting with anger and despair. Some looked familiar, like echoes of lost memories. Images flashed past me, each one locking away a piece of my past, missteps and regrets that I had buried deep. "Not today!" I shouted defiantly. I gripped the key tightly and plunged it into the thick shadows. As it sank into the darkness, a brilliant light erupted. The room filled with a blinding radiance, pushing back the shadows like a tidal wave. But as the light surged, something unexpected happened. A figure emerged from the darkness, shrouded yet familiar. I froze. I knew this person. It couldn't be— "Don't let go of your light," the figure warned as the shadows clawed at its edges. Then everything shifted. The flames died down. The shadows hissed, swirling back into the corner, desperate and rageful. I stood there, key still in hand, not sure of what to expect next. "Who are you?" I demanded, heart racing. The figure lunged forward, and everything blurred. Then suddenly, the room darkened again, plunging me back into uncertainty. The key glowed faintly in my palm, the last remaining light in a sea of shifting shadows. What had I unleashed? And what if the answer was worse than the fear itself? I blinked, trying to make sense of the darkness that surrounded me. The key in my hand pulsed like a heartbeat. There was no sign of the figure anymore, just the faint outline of the room shifting around me. I could still hear the echoes of the shadows, a whispering chorus that wrapped around me, taunting and urging me to step back. Then, something shifted in the air. I felt it before I saw it. A cool breeze, sharp and unsettling. It danced through the room, brushing against my skin like icy fingers. I turned, scanning the darkness for any sign of movement. That's when I noticed it. A small, flickering light in the far corner of the room. It wasn't much, just a match's glow, but it drew me in like a moth. I hesitated, wary of what it might reveal. The shadows were restless, twisting and churning, but the light called to me with an almost magnetic pull. "Don't follow it," a voice whispered behind me. I spun around, heart pounding. "It's a trap." The figure stood once more, but this time I could see its features. It was my own face staring back at me, eyes full of desperation. I stumbled back, unsure if I was losing my mind. "What is this?" I gasped. "Something you need to confront," my reflection replied, but the words twisted in the air, muddled and haunting. "You're running away from what you've left behind. You can't escape it." I glanced back at the flickering light, then at the shadows that seemed to swirl, eager to envelop me again. What if I don't want to face it? What if it's too much? My reflection took a step forward, the light dancing behind it. Hiding won't protect you. They'll only grow stronger. I thought of the faces I had seen in the darkness, familiar faces bent with pain. Each image felt like a part of me I'd long tried to forget. "Do I have to face them?" I asked, feeling a heavy weight settle in my chest. "Only if you want to truly free yourself." The reflection's voice softened, almost pleading. "You can't hold the key and expect it to change everything." With a shaky breath, I turned back toward the small light. The shadows groaned in protest, closing in around me. I knew I had to act. I took a step forward, heart racing, and as I did, I felt the energy of the key surge against my skin. Then everything shuddered. The light flickered wildly, merging with the shadows. A horrific blend of brightness and darkness overwhelmed me, leaving me gasping. "Please!" I shouted into the chaos, clutching the key tightly. "Just show me!" Suddenly, images flashed in front of me, moments of regret and fear, times I had let people down, the scraps of conversations I wished I could take back. Each one hit me like a punch, and I stumbled, feeling the weight of it all. I closed my eyes, slumping to the floor as my breath came in quick gasps. "I can't do this," I whispered, fighting against the despair creeping in. But then the key in my hand flared with warmth, illuminating the shadows. "Use it," my reflection called out, its voice merging with the swirling darkness. "This is your power." The key felt alive in my grip. I hadn't realized it was so much more than metal. It was a connection to the past, a chance to unlock the truth behind the shadows surrounding me. Taking a deep breath, I rose to my feet, ready to confront the memories that had haunted me for so long. I had to confront the darkness before it consumed me. And as I stepped forward again, a thought struck me. What would I truly discover if I ventured into that light? I stepped into the flickering light, the key feeling strangely warm against my palm. As I moved forward, the shadows hissed, almost like they were warning me to turn back. The chaos that had engulfed me faded slowly, replaced by a soft, ambient glow that illuminated the edges of the room. I blinked, trying to adjust. The familiar images around me began to form. Objects, places, and faces that felt both nostalgic and foreign. Memories. Flashes of moments I thought I had buried deep. My heart raced as I took in the sight of my childhood bedroom. The faded yellow walls that had once felt so comforting now loomed ominously around me. But it was a different shadow that caught my attention. A figure was standing in the corner, half hidden behind the doorframe. My breath caught in my throat as I squinted, trying to discern who or what it was. "Please, don't be afraid," a tremulous voice broke the silence. It was a woman, her face shadowed but familiar. As she stepped into the light, my breath hitched. It was my mother. But she looked different, older than her last days. Her eyes bore a sadness that spoke of unspoken words. "Mom," I whispered, torn between disbelief and yearning. "You're here?" She smiled weakly, but the sorrow in her expression only deepened. "I've waited so long to see you," she said softly, her voice trembling like the light around us. "But there are things you need to understand." I stepped closer. "Things about what?" "The fire," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "The odd fires that happened in the cabin. It wasn't just a coincidence." Her words struck me like a jolt. I had associated the weird occurrences with my childhood imagination, but now, faced with my mother's presence, I felt the weight of her story pressing down on me. "I thought I could protect you, keep you away from the truth," she continued. "But sometimes the past finds a way of creeping back in. It's why I'm here." The room wavered, the light pulsing as if trying to grasp the heaviness of the moment. "What do you mean?" I asked, desperation creeping into my voice. "What truth?" Before she could respond, the shadows shifted again, now swirling ominously around us. Their whispers turned to screams, echoing through the space. "It's because you haven't let go," they cried, a cacophony demanding my attention. My mother raised her hands, as if trying to calm both me and the shadows. "You must choose," she said firmly. "This is your chance to confront not just the past, but what lies ahead. You have the key. Use it to unlock the fear." I glanced at the key, its gleam drawing my focus. It tremored slightly, vibrating with an energy that felt alive. I knew I had to make a choice, continue to hide or dive deeper into the flames of my fears. Then I saw it. A glimmer in the shadows, a door that had always been there but I had never noticed before. A passageway to the truth. "What's behind that door?" I asked, my voice steadying. "Only you can find out," my mother replied, her eyes full of both pride and worry. It was now or never. The shadows hissed again, and I knew they were angry at my hesitation. So I took a deep breath and stepped toward the door. As my hand reached for the handle, a rush of cold air whooshed past me. I turned back to look at my mother one last time. "I'm ready," I declared, feeling the key pulsing in my grasp. But then, just as I turned the knob, the room trembled violently. The door swung open with a creak that echoed through the room, slicing through the chaos of the shadows. Beyond it wasn't just darkness, it was a swirling vortex of memories and emotions. I hesitated, anxiety tightening my chest, but another tremor shook the floor beneath me. "Go!" my mother urged, her voice rising above the cacophony. With a final glance back, I stepped into the unknown. The shadows tried to follow, but the door slammed shut behind me. I was engulfed in silence for a moment, disorientated by the sudden shift. The air was thick, and I found myself in a narrow corridor lined with doors on either side. Each door looked identical, old and splintered, but a strange pulse seemed to radiate from the one at the end of the hallway. I walked toward it, curiosity overpowering my lingering fear. As I got closer, a name fell from my lips. "The fire," I whispered. This had to be important. I reached for the knob, but an icy draft swept through the passage, chilling my bones. I jerked back, heart pounding. From behind me I sensed movement. I turned quickly, ready to confront whatever might have followed. But no one was there. just the stillness of the corridor, which now felt far more oppressive than before. It was as if the walls were alive, watching me. I returned my focus to the door. It was different. Unlike the others, it felt warm, like the key in my pocket. I placed a hand on it and with a deep breath, pushed it open. Inside was a dimly lit room, small and cluttered with items I recognized, a charred teddy bear, a stack of old photographs, and a singed journal. My heart sank. This was my childhood, tangible but distorted by flames. I stepped inside, unable to pull my eyes away from the remnants of my past. Then I noticed it. In the corner, a figure crouched, facing away from me. "Who's there?" I asked, a mixture of fear and resolve in my voice. The figure slowly turned. I gasped. It was me, but younger, with fear etched into my face. The little girl looked no older than 8, hair wild and eyes wide with panic. "What are you doing here?" she croaked, her voice trembling. "I came to find out the truth about the fire," I said. "But I don't understand. Why are you trapped here?" The younger me swallowed hard, glancing around the room nervously. "Because I'm scared," she replied. "No one believed me." Panic surged within me as I realized what this meant. I had buried the truth, even from myself. My heart raced at the thought of confronting those memories. What didn't they believe? Before she could answer, I heard a rush behind me. The door started to close. "Wait!" I shouted, but my words were swallowed as the shadows surged into the room, closing off my escape. The younger me looked at me, her eyes wide and pleading. "You have to let go," she whispered. My palms slicked with sweat as I fumbled for the key. I felt the weight of my past hanging over me, but I couldn't let fear win any longer. "Let go," I repeated, more for myself than for her. But just as I took a step forward, the shadows lunged, and everything went dark. I gasped as the darkness enveloped me, the shadows closing in like a suffocating shroud. In that moment, I felt a surge of desperation, and I clutched the key instinctively. It pulsed in my palm, its energy radiating warmth amidst the cold terror that surrounded me. "Let go!" I screamed into the void, forcing the words from my throat. "I refuse to be trapped by you any longer." With a surge of courage, I surged forward. The tension in the air coiled tight as I pushed against the oppressive force of the shadows. I remembered the light, the warmth of the fire, and the power that came with it. I didn't have to be afraid. The past was a part of me, yes, but it didn't have to dictate my future. "Remember!" I shouted again, knowing the shadows were drawn to my fear. "You don't control me." As I stepped deeper into the swirling blackness, the shadows recoiled as if they were being repelled by the strength of my conviction. I gripped the key tightly, allowing it to guide me toward not just confrontation, but resolution. In the depths of the darkness, the sound of the crackling fire roared back to life, illuminating the edges of the room. The flickering glow cut through the shadows, revealing the small space around me. I caught sight of my younger self again, glancing between me and the flickering light with fascination and dread. "What do you need to let go of?" I asked, kneeling beside her. The shadows thrashed as they lashed out, but they couldn't approach the light. "What is it?" Her eyes widened, and for a moment I saw the terrified child I once was reflected in her gaze. "I don't know," she whispered, tears glistening in the corners of her eyes. "What if they find me?" "Who?" I pressed, holding her gaze steady. "Who are you scared of?" "Of the fire," she admitted quietly. "It took everything away." The shadows twisted in reaction, but the fire burned brighter, fueling my determination. "But the fire is also part of you," I said gently. "It represents the anger, the hurt, and the despair. It can't keep you shackled. You have to feel it all, let it wash over you, in order to be free." My younger self hesitated, and I felt an echo of her fear in my heart, a reminder of days lost and memories abandoned. "It's terrifying," she whispered, trembling like a flame flickering in the wind. "I know." I nodded, not needing to explain further. "But together, we can face it. You're not alone anymore." With renewed energy, I raised the key toward the darkness. The shadows recoiled all around us, torn between retreating into the dark and swirling forward. "You've hidden for too long," I urged both her and myself. "Face the fear, and you'll find your way." "Face it," my younger self echoed, trembling but now with resolve. As I took a step closer to the flickering fire, the shadows surged forward one last time, a tempest of despair. But I stood firm, raising the key high and locking eyes with the swirling lungs of darkness. "Enough!" I yelled, unleashing a power I hadn't realized I possessed. "You can't control my story anymore." In that moment of defiance, the key blazed bright, and a wave of light cascaded through the shadows. I felt a rush of heat and clarity flood my senses as the memories came rushing forth, a mixture of sorrow and joy intertwined, revealing the essence of every moment. The shadows shrieked in protest, but they couldn't withstand the light. I watched in awe as they splintered and crumbled away, the room swirling around us like a tempest losing its strength. Then, silence. I opened my eyes to find myself in the cabin, the warmth of sunlight streaming through the windows. The fire had died down, the cabin was quiet, and I felt a sense of profound release. My younger self stood beside me, her features now illuminated by clarity instead of fear. A gentle smile creased her face, and for the first time, I felt the weight of despair lift off my shoulders completely. We had stepped into the light together, and in that moment, I understood. This wasn't just an ending, it was a beginning. The door to the past had closed, but it left a path open to explore the future. I took a long breath and let it out slowly. I had survived. The shadows would linger, perhaps, as remnants of experience, but they were no longer my masters. I still think about those days in the cabin, the whispers that called to me and the shadows that loomed. I even wondered if they had been real or just manifestations of my mind. The mystery lingers in my thoughts, pressing against the edges of my memory like a distant echo. But for now, I focus on building new stories and embracing the light that has finally found me. I moved back to the city the next week. Occasionally, I hear a whisper in my dreams, reminding me. But mostly, I try not to think about it.